What is up, friends? We're building an office desk today. We had a room in our house that was not serving much of a purpose, needed a desk, so here's the build. I bought one sheet of birch plywood for this build. The rest of it I made out of scraps I actually had left over in the shop. It was made out of some pine and some poplar. You would think at some point I would learn how to use SketchUp or some other kind of program, but I'm stuck in my ways and I like to just roughly draw all this crap out on notebook paper and do it that way. Started off by making all the cuts for the cabinet part of the desk and the drawers on the table saw. The single sheet of plywood actually wasn't quite enough to make all of the cuts I needed for the cabinet and the drawers, so I actually had some 3/4 inch plywood left over and I just used that. I just test fit all the parts of the left side cabinet for this. I wanted to gauge and make sure that everything's going to fit smoothly with the drawer slides, etc. After drilling pocket holes on the bottom part of the cabinet, I went ahead and assembled it. I've used this same method for building drawers in some of my other videos. If you've seen any of those, this won't be a surprise to you as to how these are built. These holes are all drilled and then countersunk and then screwed together. There's a 3/4 inch spacer that the drawer slides mount to attach to the side of each cabinet. I just used some old Advantech here. It's never going to be seen anyway, so scraps are fine for this in my opinion. It's important to leave a spacer board here below your drawer. That way it's easy to just slide out and keep it all in line while you're screwing it onto the slides. Mounting the top drawer is the exact same as mounting the bottom drawer. The drawer in the right side of the cabinet was going to have one big drawer instead of two smaller ones. This big single drawer was mounted again in an identical method as the other two. In addition to the drawers in the left and the right cabinet, there's also one smaller, flatter, wider drawer that runs in between the two cabinets, just under the top of the desk. Once I had all the drawers and cabinets assembled, I went ahead and got all the poplar together and started cutting it to length to build the top of the desk. I used biscuits here, and I assembled this in the same method that I've used in all my other tops of tables, etc., by gluing them together one piece at a time rather than doing one large glue up. To get the top of the desk to the correct depth, I had to rip a small strip off of one piece of poplar. During the glue up, it wasn't the most square piece of wood. I actually had to grab a wrench and kind of twist it a little bit when I glued it up, but it came out fine. Once all the glue ups were done, I hit it with some 80 grit just to get all the glue off and flatten it out a little bit. I took some filler and ran it down all the joints just in case there were any spots where the glue didn't completely fill. Once the filler was dry, I sanded it down with 120 this time. Next, I cut the table down to the correct length with a skill saw. Before I attached the cabinets to the top of the desk, I went ahead and gave it a nice quick sanding with 120. Craft paper is your friend, y'all. I mounted the cabinets by putting the backside of them flush with the backside of the top of the desk. I had calculated the depth of the cabinets to be 3/4 of an inch short of that depth. That way the drawer fronts, which were going to be 3/4 of an inch thick, would put the front of the drawers flush with the front edge of the top of the desk. They're just attached to the top of the desk with some glue and pocket hole screws. So when you make drawers with plywood, you've got this top edge that looks like the side of plywood. So rather than see all those plies, I just buy this 3/4 of an inch veneer, cut it to length, and iron it on. It's actually super simple to do this. I love my whiteboard dust guard so much, you guys. I don't think I've ever bought super thick stock to make legs out of. I just build them out of boards. So somewhere in here, my camera died. I had to go get a new one, and somewhere in there I lost the footage of me jointing these legs, but I did do that before planing. I cut all the legs down to length, and then I sanded them real quick with 80 grit. I put a 1/4 inch chamfer on the bottom of all the legs just for a very slight decorative effect. Gluing these legs on square was a little bit more of a pain than I thought it was going to be. I got them there eventually, and then I screwed them on from underneath. But if anybody knows a better way to do this, let me know. Next, I cut down some boards to build the stretchers that were going to run between the 2 legs on each side of the desk. I also had to build a couple more because I was going to put like a V shape in between the cabinet running down into the stretcher. You'll see what I mean here in a minute. Once they were glued up, I jointed them and planed them just like I did the legs. I cut the stretchers to length and then I mounted them with pocket holes. Here's the cutting and assembly of the pieces that would make the V shape I was talking about. Okay, so I'm going to try to explain how I did this as best I can. I got a square out. I found the center line on each of these pieces. I clamped them in place, and then I scored a line even with the stretcher on the other side and cut it there. I did the same thing on the other side. It took a second to get the angles just right on the miter saw, but it wasn't too bad. Okay, so you can see right here, there is a flat edge on the side of this piece rather than the point that I had cut. And that's because my method for getting these cut correctly was probably not the best way. So when I cut these and originally put them in, they were a little bit off. They weren't lining up at the center of the board. So what I actually did was go ahead and trim those off and butt them together, and it ended up lining up just fine. If you're like me, you pretty much screw something up on every project and then you figure out how to fix it. I put these in place with screws. I pre-drilled holes, countersunk them, and then screwed them in. Next, I sanded everything down with 80. I used some leftover 1/4-inch plywood to make the back of the desk. One of the last things to do here is build the drawer fronts. These are all done with poplar except for the drawer front for the right side big drawer. I ran out of poplar and I used some select pine to make that. So to mount this left side bottom drawer front, I just pre-drilled some holes, put it in place, then screwed it on from the inside. The drawer above that was a little more difficult because I couldn't just reach my hand in there to screw it. So what I did was I pre-drilled holes in the drawer. Then I put some screws in the drawer and had them protrude out just enough to where when I mounted the drawer front, I could smush it up against the screws. Then I could see where the screws were hitting the board, pre-drill some holes there, and mount it in place that way. Here's me smushing the drawer front onto those protruding screws I was talking about. For the last drawer front, all I had to do was measure the distance between these two drawers, subtract a 1/4 inch, that's an 1/8 inch for each side to make the gap between the drawers, and then I cut it to that length and mounted it. Once it was all together, I sanded it down with 120 and then 220 to get ready for paint. That being said, let's talk about paint for a second here, okay?
Hi! So I'm giving you tips about painting. So, there's no sense of just taking your time and just going like a little baby. Just whack it, okay? Just do it. It's just painting, okay? If it dries the wrong way, then just redo it. It's just a coat. It's easy to paint. All I have to do is dip it in there. It's easy.
My wife did the painting on this desk. She got two kinds of paint. One was a lighter shade of gray, one was a darker shade that was like a glaze that you had to kind of mix together with the paint color, but it came out pretty good. She just enlisted me to put the top coat on, and after that it was finished. Thanks again for watching. Y'all have been great. I really appreciate all the likes, comments, shares, etc. Everybody have a good day.